Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new episode of The Road Less Taken. This is season 2 of the show where we are in conversation with people who've made unconventional career choices and excelled at them. My name is Venky Srinivasan and I'm your host. And today I will be in conversation with a very dear friend, someone who joined the armed forces in his passion to serve the country. He was also passionate about becoming a medical professional, so he went through the Armed Forces Medical College in Pune and then served in the army for 7 years as a short service commission officer, where he had several interesting experiences being part of the medical team in the army. 6 years back, when he came out of the army, he decided to follow his passion, and he's today one of India's most prominent and very successful quizmasters, having developed his own unique style of asking questions and has blazed a trail conducting several hundreds of quizzes across the country in colleges, schools and other such institutions. Our guest for this episode of TRLT, Major Chandrakant Nair. Welcome, Major Chandrakant Nair. Pleasure and privilege to have you on this season 2 of The Road Less Taken.
Thank you so very much for inviting me and letting me be a part of this. And great work done on The Road Less Traveled so far. And really looking forward to this conversation with you.
You know, you of course are a very diverse personality. You've worn many hats, through your life so far. You've taken many interesting choices and decisions, and we'll talk about all of that. But we'll begin at the logical beginning and ask you, when you were growing up, tell us, where did you grow up? What was the environment that you grew up in? What were your ambitions as a kid? What was your answer to the typical question that every kid is asked? What do you want to do when you grow up?
I was born in Kodungallur in Kerala, and Kodungallur pops up as the answer to the question which says, where is the oldest mosque in India located? So that's where I was born way back in 1984. Yeah. And thereafter, I was brought up in a place called Nilambur, which is about an hour and a half from Calicut city.
Right.
So to answer your question proper, both my parents are doctors. So it was quite logical, like a stereotypical Indian kid, that I would also want to grow up to be a doctor. So I've been in a hospital half my life throughout my childhood and my teens. The natural progression was to do an MBBS and become a doctor. So that of course happened, but while I was doing my class 11th and 12th, that is when the Kargil war happened.
Okay.
So that is when I was really influenced by what was happening. This probably was the first war experienced by most people of our generation, you and me. So I really had no idea what the Indian Army was all about at that point in time. I really wanted to experience and understand the Indian Army up close. So then this idea got into my mind, okay, why not be an army officer as well? But I wanted to be a doctor as well as an army officer. So there was one way that both these things could be achieved, and that was by joining Armed Forces Medical College, Pune, and thereby entering the Indian Army as a doctor. So that is what happened in 2001, and that's where I ended up finally.
Was there anybody in your family circles, anyone who was in the army that you had as a reference point or a hero or a mentor you could talk to?
None at all. In my entire family, I probably would be the first person to join the army. Okay. Very recently, I came to know of a great grand uncle who was involved in the 1971 war and was a gallantry award winner and was nominated for the Padma Chakra. But that is something I came to know of only very recently. Wow. And immediately after me, my brother also joined the army. So the two of us probably are the only two people in the entire family to join the army and have some.
And how did your parents, as doctors and as concerned parents, obviously react to a decision like this that you took, saying that I will be a doctor, but I am going to go and join the armed forces and be a doctor there?
They were, of course, very supportive. So both my parents graduated from Calicut Medical College. Okay. And one of their ambitions was to join AFMC Pune and serve in the army, especially my dad. Okay. So, which is why my dad was extremely happy with me joining AFMC and with my brother also joining AFMC. So no conflicts on that front. So they were extremely happy, extremely supportive.
And tell us about your time at AFMC. Is being at AFMC like being in Calicut Medical College, or is it substantively different? What happens over there?
Extremely different from any other medical college in the entire country. Primarily because what you learn at AFMC is not just limited to the medical education. So in AFMC, I got to almost every facility that is available in the Indian Army is always also available at AFMC Pune. So you get an opportunity to learn a lot of new stuff, like say, if you want to learn horse riding, that is possible. If you want to become a mountaineer, that is possible. So basically, the Indian Armed Forces, they rear you to be trained in all aspects of life. You would have seen that most of a good number of athletes, good number of sportsmen representing the country are from the Indian Armed Forces. And this is primarily because of the support provided by the armed forces, the students at their academies and other training institutes. So in that regards, AFMC was extremely different. There were a couple of issues in AFMC that, I mean, it's not an issue per se. It's just that as a student, the natural thing is you don't want to get up early in the morning. So AFMC being an Indian Armed Forces college, you had to get up early in the morning, 6 o'clock for PT. So you had to go for PT in the morning. That, of course, proved to be an issue to most people in my batch.
Right.
So what we had to pay a fine of 10 bucks if one missed a PT session.
Right.
So the entire batch used to pay 50 bucks every month and not attend PT at all. So that's one way that we used to. We would bypass the PT issue in that regard.
Not you, I think, though. You are quite an early riser, aren't you?
I used to be while I was in the army. I used to get up at 5 in the morning. I used to run 5 to 6 kilometers every day. I used to play badminton every day for about 3-4 hours. So I used to be extremely fit. I used to keep myself fit during my time in the army. But unfortunately, after leaving the army, everything's gone down. And the level of fitness I had in the army is something I would want to achieve and get back to once again. But
yeah, especially in these times, right? I mean, definitely,
correct,
I think keeping up.
Correct. Yes.
And so, you go through the AFMC course, and then what happens when you finished your course? Logically, do you get to choose? Are you automatically kind of assigned to a regiment? How does it work?
So basically, from AFMC, you have 3 options after you complete your MBBS. Either you can join the armed forces, the Army, Navy, or Air Force on a short service commission, which is for about a period of 7 years. Or else you can join the armed forces on a permanent commission, which is 20 years plus. Mostly it becomes a lifelong tenure.
Right.
Or else you can pay a bond money of 25 lakhs and leave this bit of joining the armed forces.
Oh, I see.
So only because the government is paying for education, everything in the college. You don't have to spend a single penny while you're in college. So whatever the government has spent for your education, they would take it back from you. So that's the bond money that we are talking about. So assuming that you join the army, you do your internship from one of the many Indian Army hospitals, Indian Armed Forces hospitals across the country, Army, Navy, or Air Force. So there are some designated 30-35 internship hospitals, busy hospitals, where you get all kinds of cases. So you do your internship, and thereafter you have to go to a field area. So you can either be sent to an infantry regiment, an artillery regiment in a field location, or else you can join something called a field hospital. So the field hospitals are run by the Indian Army Medical Corps. So you can be assigned to the Indian Army Medical Corps institution in a field setup, or you can be assigned as a regimental medical officer to an infantry battalion, an artillery unit, an armored corps unit, etc., anywhere in the field. So you serve in the field for about 2 to 3 years, depending upon where you are posted. If it is a hard field, a high intensity counterinsurgency area, a high altitude area, then your tenure may be just only about 2 years. But if it's a relatively peaceful area, let's say Uttarakhand is not as problematic with regards to the insurgency issue when you compare a place like, let's say, Kupwara in Kashmir or Manipur in the northeast. So that period might vary, but invariably you'll be posted in a field area. And thereafter, you come back to a peace setup. And thereafter, if you're a short service commissioned officer, your 7 years will be done by then, and you can leave the forces after that. But if you're a permanent commissioned officer, then you have the provision of doing a post-graduation from Armed Forces Medical College, Pune again, or any of the other teaching hospitals of the Indian Armed Forces, like the Army Hospital Research and Referral in Delhi, the Command Hospital Air Force in Bangalore. And then once you do your post-graduation, then you go up and do your DM, and then you further ascend the medical ranks and go on to become a specialist and various other administrative duties, just like in any other setup in the Indian Armed Forces.
Right. And you took the short service commission route, did you?
That's correct. Yeah, I served for 7 years. My internship was in Hyderabad.
Okay.
I served 3 years in the Northeast. So my tenure should have been ideally 2 years, 2.5 years, but I ended up serving for 3 years in various locations in the Northeast. And thereafter, I came back to a peace area in Trivandrum, served 3 years in Trivandrum, and that's where my 7 years came to an end. And I mean, whatever I had set out to achieve, whatever I had joined the army for all of it I could achieve. Everything that I wanted to do, everything that I wanted to know about the army, thankfully, the army let me do in those 7 years. So extremely grateful to the Indian Forces for letting me be a part of the organization and doing what I wanted to.
That's great to hear. So, so as a doctor, where and how did you come across your first case? Was it that you attended to yourself?
Oh, this is something that will stay with me forever. So my first ever case while I was an intern at military hospital Secunderabad was basically you're in your internship period, so you're not directly assigned a duty medical officer as a duty medical officer. So you become something called an ADMO, an additional duty medical officer. You're under someone and under a senior doctor, and that senior doctor supervises your day wherever you're posted. So the very first case that I was put in charge of was a brought in dead case. So somebody was brought in dead. A soldier unfortunately met with an accident and he was brought in dead. And it's very rare for any doctor to have their first ever case as a person who was brought in without any life in them at all. So unfortunately, that was my first, but that was a very, very moving moment and something that taught me a lot and something that kept me prepared for all the difficult cases in the future that I was supposed to encounter.
Right. And, then I know, of course, that, you spent those phenomenal 3 years in the Northeast. And I think it was a life-changing experience, if I might say so, for you. Tell us some of the details about those stints. I mean, in as much as you can reveal some of those details.
So basically, like I had mentioned, I was posted in the Northeast and specifically in a remote area in Nagaland, so close to the Manipur border. At that point in time, we had a ceasefire with the various insurgent groups, the NSC and IM. They had a ceasefire with the Indian Army. So things were relatively peaceful then. What I felt, what I understood during my 3 years in the Northeast was that the media actually paint a very different image of what is happening at our borders. So people in the Northeast were extremely receptive, were amongst the best people I've ever come across in my life. But that is not what the media has projected the area to be like. Had extremely good rapport with all the people, all the civilians in the Northeast. The thing is, they have no real medical support or no real administrative support in most of the areas in the Northeast. So the Indian Army units in the vicinity are their only places where they can go and get some help. So they used to depend on us for medical help. They used
so you would get civilian patients as well?
Plenty. We had to manage. In fact, majority of my clientele were civilian patients. So if I got 20 patients a day, about 15 would be civilians and only about 5 people would be the people from the Indian Army. I was with a Naga regimental unit. So Nagas, extremely fit people, extremely enterprising people. Very rarely would they fall sick. So the number of cases with regards to the army, hardly any, but plenty of civilian patients, plenty of children were brought to us. Like malaria is endemic in the Northeast, so plenty of malaria cases, plenty of cases like snake bite, plenty of other insect-borne diseases, plenty of injuries, plenty of cold injuries specifically because of the climate. So these were the predominant conditions that I had to encounter while I was a doctor in the Northeast. And my daily routine. So like I had mentioned, early morning you had to get up for PT. And then I had no issues doing the PT because I had gotten used to getting up early in the morning. So PT became a part and parcel of my life. And thereafter, you go to your office, then spend your time in the office, seeing patients till about 2 o'clock. Thereafter, you come back, and in the borders, once you're done with your assigned duty, you're left with a lot of free time. So it's a struggle to actually fill up the time available to yourself. So that's when started picking up a lot of sporting activities. Used to play badminton a lot, then used to play tennis a lot, then used to involve myself in a lot of mountaineering activities. So plenty of adventure expeditions were available to us during that time. Like one real interesting experience that I wanted to share was with regards to a wedding that I had to attend in the Northeast. So my unit being a Naga regimental unit, so a couple of our officers were also Nagas. So this young officer was getting married, and during any wedding pertaining to anybody from a unit, you're supposed to represent the unit and attend the wedding in full uniform and everything. So two of us from our unit were assigned to go and attend that wedding, me and another senior officer. So we went with a convoy of about 35 people, and we got there. And then we realized one thing. In the Northeast, the unemployment issue was so severe. That is how a lot of people there get attracted to the offers from the various insurgent factions and end up joining them. So this officer whose wedding I attended, half his family were actually part of multiple insurgent groups in the Northeast.
Oh, wow.
So in the same wedding, we had people from the Indian Army in attendance and people from various insurgent groups in attendance. Everyone was in their old uniform. Us from the army in our uniform, them from their respective insurgent groups, NSC and IMORK in their uniforms. All of us had our weapons. The army people had their weapons. The insurgents had their weapons. And we all peacefully sat and had food, feast across a table. The army people on one side, the insurgents on the other side, because they were his immediate relatives. So the militants on one side, the army people on one side, without any issues in our uniforms with weapons, peacefully we had meal over without any issues. So that's one incident that has stayed on with me ever since.
Wow, that's really a story. It's a picture for the ages, actually, if you think about it.
Absolutely. That's when I realized like it's actually possible for everyone across the world to exist, coexist without any issues at all, provided you learn to keep aside your differences and treat the other person as a human being. I mean, most of our issues can be solved. That is one big takeaway from my tenure in the Northeast.
Yeah, this whole, you a person from Kerala, literally one end of the country, you're in Manipur, Nagaland, which is, if you draw a line, it's probably the exact kind of, almost the other end of the country. This whole culture. Correct. Knowing this completely different part of the country, I mean, to many others, it may seem like a different part of the world, literally, right?
One has to be there and live that life for a few years to understand and how different it is, how big. No, I wouldn't say it's a cultural shock or anything. An entirely different culture, an entirely different group of people. But ultimately, I realized that there's hardly any difference between somebody from Kerala and somebody from Nagaland. They're all the same if you boil it down to your very basic essence. There's nothing separating a person. The kind of treatment I get in Kerala is exactly the same as it was in Nagaland.
So were you still very curious types even those days? Were you like, hunting out these little nuggets of information from everywhere? Were you collecting all these wonderful different artifacts and objects and making notes and things that would kind of lead up to your career today?
Absolutely. Quizzing is something, and quizzing, reading, something that's stayed on with me ever since I was a primary school kid. So, but when I got to the Northeast, I realized that it's not actually possible for me to take leave and go attend a quiz as much as I wanted. Because I'm the only doctor in, say, a radius about 100 kilometers. So everyone in that radius is dependent on me. So I cannot leave that area without somebody coming in and relieving me. So that's when, that was the time when quizzing through blogs was a big thing in India. So that's when I discovered a lot of new blogs. That's how I ended up with Daily Hall from KQA, which was run by Udupa, you, Kivi, Mitesh, a lot of other people then. I had my own blog then. It ran for about 7-8 years, and multiple top quizzers from across the country, including Arun Hirigange, yourself, Naveen Rajaram, Udupa, were all extremely glad that I could keep in touch with everyone through these blogs during my 3 years in the Northeast. And we used to host a lot of quizzes in our unit. I wanted
so is that a culture you brought in? Is that something you brought into the unit?
There was literally, people had not heard of the word quiz at all prior to me joining that unit.
Okay.
So I realized that the various parties that we had in the unit used to be drab affairs, like people come talk to each other for about, say, 15-20 minutes, and then it's the same people that you met throughout the entire day, so there's nothing new to speak. So people come with their families, get together, have a good time, and then go back home. So nothing else happening. That's when I realized I probably can introduce them to some good questions and see how it goes. So just got a projector from the unit office to the officers' mess. Just got my laptop along and projected a simple set onto the wall of the officers' mess. And the thing took off like anything. And after about a year and a half, parties were organized only so that quizzes could be hosted. So people would say, "Aaj quiz karna hai, so let's have a party." So that's how from not knowing about quizzes at all to such kind of a transformation. So that's one thing I'm really, really happy about.
I mean, that's definitely the most unique quizmaster story in the world. That the first chance or avatar as a quizmaster was at an army unit based with the Naga regiment in the northeast of India. So then, you came back to Trivandrum, of course, and then your commission ended. What was going through your mind at that time? Was it an emotionally tough call to make, disengaging from the armed forces on an operational basis?
Definitely. I mean, after joining the army, life changed so much, and you became a part of the army, and it was a very, very emotional, very tough phase. I actually did not, in a way, did not want to leave the army, but then I realized whatever purpose I wanted, whatever I had joined the army for, I had actually achieved everything within those 7 years. So I was looking forward to a new challenge, and that is why I finally took that decision of leaving the army. And the plan was actually to maybe take a year off and catch up on all the quizzing that I missed, catch up on all the reading that I missed. But ultimately, it worked out so well that the plans of doing or continuing my medical education further, or maybe doing an MBA and diversifying into something else, that ultimately ended up taking a back seat, and quizzing ultimately became I wouldn't say a profession. It became my, 24/7, my life in a nutshell. Quizzing became my life, and thankful to everyone across the country for letting me pursue this as a passion that I've had for a very, very long time. And thanks to everyone's support, I've been able to live that life as well. Another thing that I really had a dream about.
Right. And the other thing is that, while there are a lot of, the quizzing industry, if I can call that, in India is made up of largely two constituencies of people who offer these services. One is, of course, professional organizations like Nexus and others who do a whole gamut of things. And then there are a lot of freelance quizmasters, if you want to call them that. And I think you lead the pack more than anything else on the sheer volume of work that you do. I think what you've been averaging close to 80 to 100 quizzes over the last 4 years at least. How do you keep this relentless pursuit of this whole knowledge and making it fun? And because I know one of the things is that as a quizmaster, you can't afford to let your energy drop when you're on stage, right? So how do you keep this going?
So as a quizmaster, you're a quizmaster yourself, you're a quizzer yourself, so you know the process behind setting a question. So the thing with this quizzing industry, or the quizzing in India, as we call it, we end up traveling. So if there's a quiz happening in Delhi, all of us end up traveling to Delhi to attend those quizzes. If there's a quiz happening in Calcutta, all of us end up traveling to Calcutta to attend those quizzes. So basically, the endeavor is to keep every question fresh. So if there's a quiz happening in Bangalore, everyone from Chennai, everyone from Kerala, everyone from Bombay, everyone from Hyderabad would come and attend these quizzes. If a quiz is happening in Chennai, so the rest of the crowd will come and attend these quizzes. So there is no scope of reusing these questions. So like you had just mentioned, if you end up having to set nearly 100 quizzes in a year, then it's only possible if you end up putting that kind of effort. So over the course of the entire year, when the quizzing season starts, let's say in August, when it basically coincides with the academic season. So when during peak season in December, Jan, February, March, so I personally end up putting close to 16 odd hours every day into setting these questions, only because that's the only way to find good questions, good information. So you end up reading 10 articles, you may end up with one good question. So the sheer volume of quizzes has meant that I need to put in that kind of effort to find that many good questions. And it is a full-time job. It probably is busy. I would actually call it busier than my life had I been a doctor. So
right.
My life as a quizmaster has been busier than what it would have been as a doctor. And it's something that has kept me occupied and working for the last 6 to 7 years.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic to hear. And I think that's a very good point. I mean, people might think that what's there in going and conducting quizzes? How can that be a job?
Exactly. It's
whatever,
it's not a simple process. You end up finding a good piece of information, and you have to then frame it and bring it into a form that is palatable to a majority of the audience attending that quiz. And it's not an easy task. You end up looking for more clues, looking for more supporting information to add into a question. So you find one bit of info, it's then about 2 hours of work to present that information as a question. So it's nowhere near as simple as what people would think.
And it requires the same amount of diligence and hard work that, let's say, writing a book requires, or doing a regular professional job requires. Yeah.
Exactly. You try and refine this question to a point where, so in the first draft of your question, you may not really be satisfied with the question, or this is not good enough. So you end up adding something more, you end up chopping a few words, you end up adding an image, you end up adding, say, a video clue. So, I mean, it's a process that it's ongoing, and still maybe you end up with a question or a quiz that you are not really satisfied with. That is also very much possible.
Okay. And, as we come towards the end of our chat, it's a bit of a cliched question. I know you probably answered this in many other forums, but let me still go ahead and ask you for the benefit of viewers of TRLT, many of whom may not necessarily be from the quizzing community. So what is the most memorable quiz for you that you've conducted? And I'm not asking this from how close did the quiz finish, etc. But is there a very interesting or different setting in which you conducted a quiz that will always stay with you?
One quiz, it was not an official quiz or anything. So this was a very short quiz of about, say, 20-30 minutes that we did in 2013, September in Khardungla. So a bunch of us quizzers during Onam in 2013 had this weird idea. Let's bike all the way to Khardungla in Ladakh and try and get to Khardungla. Khardungla happens to be unofficially the highest motorable pass in the world. So try riding all the way to Khardungla, get there and celebrate Onam there and set up a Pookalam. So in Kerala, we have this custom of setting up a flower carpets called Pookalam during Onam. So our aim was to get to Khardungla on the day of Tiruvodam and set up a Pookalam there. But a majority of the people during this journey were quizzers. So if quizzers get together at one place, then it doesn't happen without having a quiz along with it. So then we thought, okay, since we are in Khardungla, why don't we have a quiz there? So one of your employees, let me call him that, and my dearest friend and teammate at CIDs from Kerala, Rishikesh Verma, was part of that entourage. So a bunch of us 10-odd quizzers ended up having a quiz at Khardungla over a period of 30 minutes. And I don't think any setting would come close to having a quiz at minus 20 degrees Celsius, sitting on bikes. So the participants, we had about 6 teams, and the participants were sitting on their own bikes. So the 2 members per team, the rider and the pillion. So and like that, we had this quiz for about I think there were about 15, 20 questions over 30 minutes. So an extremely memorable quiz, something that will stay on with all of us throughout our lives. The questions shown through a laptop in the quizmasters. I was the quizmaster in my hand, so I don't think anything can come close to that.
Amazing, amazing. That's an amazing story. I'm sure a lot of people watching this will say that, we all are crazy for doing stuff like this, but, that's what drives us, right? So, yeah, I can.
Ultimately, the aim was to say, ultimately, it's unofficially brag to everyone that, see, we have set up the world's highest flower carpet. See, we have actually done the world's highest quiz. So something like that.
Yeah.
Just for fun.
Yeah.
That was the whole aim behind this.
Yeah. And what next for Major Chandrakant Nair after this? I mean, are you going to kind of continue to build and cement your place in the quizzing side? Will you be also pursuing your medical profession in parallel, or are you just the person who's going to just take it as it comes and you'll figure it out later?
What I've realized is, I'm what you mentioned at the very end. I am somebody who has taken up life as it came to me. I mean, whatever long-term plans I had, I've dropped them at the spur of the moment, and I have not regretted any of it. All of it has thankfully worked out well for me, thanks to the support of a lot of people across the country. And yeah, for the foreseeable future, I think I will continue as a quizmaster. But yes, I have done the fair bit of medical thing also over the last 6 to 8 months. I have given a lot of medical support to a lot of people, helped, people with medical advice. But I think that's a very temporary thing. For the last, if you discount the pandemic alone, for the last 7, 8 years after leaving the army, the only medical advice I have given to have been my friends, my teammates, my close friends, and people whom I knew during my time in the army. Due to that association, they would still call me instead of any other doctor for any kind of medical advice. So that was my primary medical clientele. And the other set would be animals. I love animals. I have a lot of pets at home, cats, dogs. So the other medical support I have given over the last 7 to 8 years have been to animals. So if ever, I probably get more animal patients than human patients. So people across the country call me up. So if their cat has an issue, if their dog has an issue, they end up calling me, what can be done for this if they're not able to take them to a vet. So
wonderful to hear that. And, as a final question, before we request you to do something special for our viewers, for impressionable young people watching this who are on the throes of making career decisions, whether it's to join the armed forces, whether it's to join the medical profession, or to take up something completely different, like following your passion and becoming a quizmaster, what would you like to tell them?
What I feel is the person that I am today is ultimately due to all the good people that I had the good fortune of coming across in my life. And the organization that I was a part of, the Indian Army, has molded me to be the person that I am today. What I feel is the Army made me a much more complete person. A lot of skills that I picked up in my life thanks to what the Army taught me. The discipline, getting up early in the morning, I wouldn't really call that, I get up pretty late in the morning. I wouldn't call that discipline, but if you discount that, the Army has instilled in me, for example, the Army taught me the importance of time to maintain. If you've given somebody, I'll be there at 9 o'clock. So the Army has taught me to be there at 8:55. So almost always, unless something else intervened, I have always kept my time. I've always not let anyone down in that regard. So that is one thing that the Army has taught me. So yes, in my opinion, if somebody wants to join the Indian Armed Forces, it will not be a decision that they will regret ever. It probably is the best career, in my opinion, for any young person in the country. What the Army can teach you, what the Navy, Air Force can teach you, no other organization can teach you. In my opinion, it's like, I'm not an advocate of conscription or anything, but in my opinion, everybody should have a 2-year tenure in the Indian Army only to experience, and only so that it will make you a much better person. I don't think I would have been the same person had I not been a part of the Indian Army. So I would definitely, encourage people to join the Indian Armed Forces.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We have one of the country's premier quizmasters here, so we are not going to let you go, Major Chandrakant Nair, without asking you to ask some questions very specially put together by you. And thank you for that, for our viewers of The Road Less Taken. So here is your chance. Major Chandrakant Nair, one of India's topmost quizmasters, is going to ask you 3 questions. See those questions, jot down your answers and send them through email to the ID that's flashing on your screens, which will come up as soon as Major finishes asking his questions. And we will then pick some of you lucky winners and tell the world that you answered these questions correctly, and we'll probably give you some very cool prizes as well. So it's over to the man himself.
Thanks a lot, Venky, for this opportunity to present a few questions to the audience of TLRT. So here's my first question to all the viewers of TLRT. H. Kahneman Company were a prominent medical enterprise situated on St. Aldate Street in Gloucester over a century ago. Sometime in 1891, they received a customer who had traveled all the way from London to this place. This person, an officer of the London Vegetarian Society, used to shuttle across the UK in this capacity to promote the organization's ideals. His many contacts there took him to the county on several occasions, and it was during one of these visits that he felt the need to make a certain purchase in an effort to tide over a medical problem he was experiencing. What exactly was bought from the shop? Look at all the clues in the question. Look at the timeline. Look at the fact that this person was in the UK in the 1890s. Look at the fact that this person was a member of the London Vegetarian Society. He had a minor medical problem. Therefore, he thought, okay, I need to purchase something. What did this person purchase from the shop that went on to become a major part of his identity? I want the name of the person and what that person bought from that shop. Question number 2. John Keane is a contemporary British artist whose paintings are based heavily on modern day political and social issues. So he works by reducing pictures to their barest elements to make his viewers look at them anew. One such artwork simply has a vertical orange bar alongside a slightly longer vertical black bar on a yellowish brown background. What was this painting based on? I'll show you the image once. This is the visual. You can see a brown background there. You can see a vertical orange bar, which is shorter than a vertical black bar. And this British artist works on political and social issues, and he reduces pictures to their barest elements. So think of something from the last 1 decade or so, a certain menace that has affected the world, specifically one particular part of the world. I could even give you the general area, a particular part of Asia. So something would happen every now and then in a particular part of Asia. So he thought, I have to draw the world's attention to this through my work, which is why he thought, let me pick the imagery of those developments and then distill them down to their barest elements. And this is what he came up with. So simply tell me, what exactly is this painting by Mr. Keane based on? What developments from one particular part of Asia are we looking for here? Question number 3. When Charlie Cole, a noted American journalist, passed away in 2019, most obituaries highlighted an incident from his life from about 3 decades ago, 3 decades back from 2019. This involved him noting that the PSB happens to be an organization, a security organization, SB expands to Security Bureau, had been watching his activities at a high-rise building. So he was at a high-rise building, and the PSB had noted him at that high-rise building, and they immediately made a move to nab him. Now, he did not want the fruit of his labor confiscated, and therefore he hid it in a can, which was stashed inside the holding tank of his room's toilet. The PSB broke through the door 15 minutes later and left without being able to find the hidden item. So Cole returned to the toilet a day and a half later and claimed this thing. And then this thing went on to become world famous. So tell me, what exactly did he hide in the tank of the toilet? Again, look at the multiple clues in the question. You have a timeline there. 3 decades earlier from 2019, he was at a high-rise building. A security organization saw him there and thought, we have to catch him. And they landed there, did not find this thing. Ultimately, he returned, retrieved this thing, made it world famous. What exactly was this thing hidden inside the holding tank of his room's toilet? You can simply tell me how this thing became famous. That would also work as an answer to this question. So these are my 3 questions to the viewers of TLRT. Thank you so very much, Venky, for giving me an opportunity to present a few questions to the viewers.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you on the show, chatting with you. I know, we go back quite some years now as fellow quizmasters, as fellow quizzers. We take part with each other, we compete against each other and so on. But I'm glad we had a chance to actually sit down and chat and know a lot more details about some of the things that you talked about, some of your important career choices and decisions and how that has molded your life. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for those 3 very special questions as well.
Thank you so very much for Venky for having me over on TLRT. It was a pleasure and honor being with you and speaking to you over my life. And thanks a lot for this opportunity. And thanks a lot to the viewers of the show who have tuned in and made the show a hit. Thank you so very much.
That, ladies and gentlemen, was Major Chandrakant Nair taking us through his wonderful journey of how life was like in the army as a medical professional, and then how he decided to follow his passion and has put in a lot of hard work and effort into becoming a prominent quizmaster in India. If that excited and inspired you, please don't miss watching episodes of The Road Less Taken. All episodes of season 1 are available on our YouTube channel, and future episodes will be dropping there as well. We also have highlights videos of all our episodes. So please do like, share, and subscribe. Till I meet you again in the next episode of TRLT, this is Venky Srinivasan saying, stay home, stay safe, and bye-bye.